Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, Chicago Wolves have had an up-and-down season so far, and lately they've been really struggling, losing their last 4 games and being outscored 17-6. The Wolves currently sit in 4th place overall in the Central Division, 6 points back of Grand Rapids. To bring us up to date on the latest with the Wolves, our Storm Tracker Chicago Wolves insider, Andrew Rinaldi. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Tom, aside from some of the past couple results there. But hey, you know what? We'll talk about it. We'll get it over.
Well, for sure. And you know, I noticed the struggle. I mean, they've been outscored badly, have not played well. And so I thought I'd check the lineup card just to see who's been playing. And it looks like their team is pretty well intact. All the top guys are there. So it's not an injury problem. It doesn't seem like the flu bug, which was, of course, hitting the Carolina Hurricanes. So what's going on?
It's I think you can attribute it to a couple different factors. You know, the beginning of this streak was that second game in Bakersfield, West Coast, kind of, you know, different time zone and all that, several different time zones away. And you can see just this team just didn't really have its legs under it, and they kind of got caved in against a Condors team that's kind of at the bottom of their division, but you can kind of write it off as kind of a one-off. The Rockford game was just kind of sloppy all around for this team, just a lot of turnovers, some undisciplined penalties that they got behind the 8 ball really quick, and from there the floor just kind of caved in on them. And then they had that series against Cleveland, and they might not seem super impressive in the standings right now, but this is still a team that has a ton of veteran presence on it. They were a goal away from upsetting Hershey in the Calder Cup playoffs, so it's a tough stretch right now. You'd like to see some more of these looks, especially with the man advantage kind of starting to go in and help the guys out a little bit, but I think they're just kind of hitting a couple potholes in the road. I don't think that there's, you know, where I was in my other beat in Grand Rapids, where I'm kind of leaning more towards the panic button from how they played for the last couple of weeks. I'm still liking what I'm seeing from Chicago. I still think that, you know, there's just kind of some issues that need to be ironed out over the long run, and that they're just kind of in a bumpy patch in the road for this point right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that, you know, they've been seeming to have a little bit more success on the penalty kill, but certainly the power play has been a problem. They're 2 for 17 in their last number of games? Yeah,
and overall, they're bottom 5 in the entire AHL. So I feel like, you know, when you have a power play monster quarterback like Scott Morrow, and you have an elite level trigger man like Bradley Nadeau, like it's kind of incredible to see where they're at and with the man advantage. I actually I knew there were struggles here and there, but I didn't quite realize they were that bad until I kind of checked the stats this weekend. So that was a little a little eye opening to me personally, but I kind of think that they can be a little one dimensional on the power play there. I think that if it's all going through Nadeau seemingly at this moment, and if he's not going to be firing them in, then there's not a whole lot of options 2 and 3. Unfortunately, it feels a lot like those early Alexander Ovechkin seasons in Washington, where it's like, well, we're gonna feed him because no one else seems to have that hot stick lately, and I mean, when they keep going in for Bradley, it's hard to justify against it. But I think that he could use a little help on the man advantage.
Well, and Noah Gunler, I think, started the season, and he was having some success on the power play for sure. And he's one of those guys that you're going to look at. Another guy that I think about and seems to have slipped down to the third line right now and playing right wing again is Felix Unger-Sorm. Is he challenged a little bit this year?
Well, I mean, he's a teenager, and I think it's, we had such sky high expectations for Felix, especially considering how his first camp in Carolina, he kind of was really pushing the envelope there in that training camp and in preseason. Yeah. And so I think the expectation was for him to just come in and absolutely blow the doors down in Chicago. And you're seeing the makings for a good player in time, but I still think that there's just so much to adjust for him. They've been trying him out at center, and it's such a completely different world than playing at winger. So I think they're trying to get him to be a little more comfortable in his own skates and put him up there on the wing, and which I think is a little more natural for him. He's looking a little more natural. I love the way that he's able to protect the puck. I love his vision. He just needs to be a little stronger on the puck, I feel. When you're that first one that's in there in the corners, unfortunately, it's the nature of this league. You're going to get smacked, and you can't be worried about getting smacked. And I've seen it with Jonathan Berggren, similar type of player who's not the biggest guy on the ice, but he's after a while, you get adjusted to the defensemen in this league and how they're going to be coming after you, and you learn to make plays. And it's just going to take some time with Felix. And, I think it's not everyone's going to be Bradley Nadeau and just come in and just first season, just dynamite immediately. And that's okay. I think it's good for him to face a little bit of adversity and figure it out, and not everything's going to just come to him naturally. So is it a little disappointing? Sure. But I'm not, I'm not hitting any panic buttons with these guys. Not yet.
Well, and certainly earlier in the year, we saw some outstanding plays by Felix Unger-Sorm. He made a number of outstanding setups on goals that were, that were really almost highlight reel goals. He's a guy that obviously has the skills, and I think he went and played for his home country, of course, in the junior tournament, and had a chance to play right wing again. And I think that was good for him. And he seems like he's more suited to that. We know he's got to bulk up. He's got to learn the pro game and so on. But I agree with you, Andrew. I think he's going to have his ups and downs in his first pro season with Chicago, and we just have to be ready for that. And I know he's being sheltered a little bit, which is great right now. He's on that third line with Pavlichev, and I think they've got Turcotte or others kind of working on the wing with him. So he's got some veteran players helping him out, and hopefully, he'll find his way. Now, you did mention, of course, Bradley Nadeau. Bradley is probably one of the guys that hasn't missed a beat. He's just continuing to tear up the league. He's got 19 goals now, 34 points. He's really been playing extremely well. What are you seeing with Bradley Nadeau these days?
I don't know really what more I can say about him that I've already said several times in the past. Just absolute elite NHL shot that's blowing by goaltenders at this level, and it's it's consistent. You can see guys that can kind of score in bunches and then maybe go cold for a while. Since he's come back from the World Juniors, this kid's just been absolute fire, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of how many at this point. And it's been a real treat to watch. You could see early on in this season just instant chemistry with Ryan Suzuki.
Yes,
and that's been kind of a bit of the catalyst for his success there. And at this point, it's really, I think, what this organization is going to look for is just for him to keep it consistent. For him to, kind of round out some of the other, the other details I have, like what I've seen from him off the puck as well. I think he's got a bit of he's maturing more and more every day into that sort factor of his game. So I like what I'm seeing from Bradley a lot. Hopefully I'm going to continue to like it. And, it's as we kind of get into the down to the stretch run here, is, gearing up for the playoffs. He's going to be a guy that they're going to continue to lean on for the bulk of the offense. And as of right now, he's showing no signs of stopping. So again, if for the hot hand, like the Ovechkin and the Capitals, just keep feeding. Why not?
Well, rightfully so. And I guess you kind of addressed what I've been wondering about with Nadeau. I mean, clearly he's a natural goal scorer. There's no question. Mm-hmm. And the bigger thing he'll need to work on, of course, is this full 200-foot game, his game away from the puck, as you mentioned, and just being a solid defensive player as well. And that's going to be the key for him. At this stage, it's going to be interesting as he continues to round out his game and show this offensive capability this year as a rookie in the American Hockey League. He's going to push for a spot in the fall. And the key will be, can he round out his game sufficiently enough to get a real true shot with the Canes? And I hope he does, because I think he's starting to show that from an offensive perspective, there's no questions with this guy.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to cheat the zone and Rod Brind'Amour's system. I can tell you that. Not that he does in Chicago. He's not a cherry picker by any means, but just saying that he has the ample opportunities in Chicago to work on those aspects here. Yeah. Whereas, some other franchises might see what he's doing offensively and try and pull him up and give the team some kind of spark. Whereas I think they're doing the right thing by allowing him to naturally kind of grow and mature in Chicago with ample opportunities to work on that while also refining his game with the puck as well, which is, again, the results have kind of spoke for themselves. He doesn't even turn 20 until May, and he's, putting up historic goal scoring numbers for a teenager at this level. Yeah. I think he's up there with just behind Jason Spezza's record run. So it'll be fun if he can keep this up. I hope he does.
Yeah, it's outstanding, and for sure. I kind of totally agree on what you were just saying too, Andrew, that the Canes now have a solid American Hockey League franchise. They don't need to rush these players. Players like him and certainly Scott Morrow and some of the other younger guys that are kind of finding their way in the pros, some of the blue liners and so on. I think this is just outstanding for the Canes. And these players are definitely players that have a future with the Hurricanes, or certainly in the National Hockey League. And the fact that they can, spend the time now, get great coaching. I think the crew in Chicago is doing a great job, and continue to develop as they should. And you're absolutely right. Some other times with the Canes and some other teams, they'd be calling Bradley in a hurry to try to get some of that offense. So great stuff with him. I wanted to talk about goaltending for a minute. I've seen some interesting things with the goaltending. So, they had Dustin Tokarski come back. He and Spencer Martin have been carrying the load. They're both sitting around 2.37, 2.42 in that kind of range, goals against. Martin, of course, has been, with a heavier workload. He's won 14 games for the Wolves this year. We're not seeing much about Ruslan Kaziev these days. What's happening with the goaltending?
Yeah, it's been mostly a heavy dose of Spencer Martin, and then Dustin Tokarski gets most of that backup role there. Kaziev has been in for a couple of spot starts here and there, and I think he was kind of thrust up into that backup role a little quicker than usual. And, he showed flashes of his talent. Ultimately, yeah. I think, it's been a little tough for the team to kind of rely on him he's just, unfortunately, I don't think he's had a game where he's given up less than 3 goals since December.
Yeah.
So but that's, again, he's, being so raw, so young in this type of league. It's kind of natural. I'm not really certain what the plan is for him. If they just want to get him exposed to how, the coaching and just kind of how the pro game works at the AHL, instead of getting him some starts down maybe with the Bloomington Bison along with Yaniv Peretz. I don't really have that kind of intimate plan. That's the kind they don't really share with me. So,
Stan's not telling you what his plan is for his goaltender.
No. It's whether it's it's Stan's plan or it's Carolina's plan. However it aims to be. I haven't really had any reason to question their judgment for now. So it might be a little unorthodox to carry 3 goalies as of this time, especially for someone as young as Kaziev, who would benefit from more starts and more playing time. I'm just going to defer to the guys up in Raleigh and Chicago know better than I do. That's for sure.
Well, Kaziev, his numbers, he's sitting at a 3.33 goals against. The tough part is his save percentage at 876. Not surprising. I mean, he, again, as you say, he's learning his craft. We've talked a little bit about this before too, Andrew, that, Stan Dubicki has had experience with Russian goaltenders before. Of course, he spent time with Piotr and so on. And he's a great guy to continue to mentor Kaziev. Now, another possibility, and who knows what happens as the deadline comes close, is we might see one of these veterans moved, Spencer Martin or Dustin Tokarski. Any number of things could happen. Who knows what that holds? But again, I kind of agree with you. They're I think for whatever reason they want to keep Kaziev here. Peretz has gone down and he's played very, very well for Bloomington, so that's good news. But again, we'll have to see how this plays out. He certainly needs to get more playing time, that's for sure, and they've got to figure out how that all comes together. But I'm a big fan of Kaziev. I've said this many times. I think he's got a great future with the Hurricanes, and I'd like to see him get some more playing time.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of, you mentioned it, a young goaltender that just kind of needs to find his groove. But it's hard to find your groove if you're not in the net. So I'd like to see him down in Bloomington. Get him, just kind of don't get the legs super cold, because then the worst case scenario would be if something, if there's either a call up or an injury. Now you have this kid who's ice cold, and you're again relying on him whereas I think earlier in the season it was like you had no choice.
Right.
This time you can put yourself in a better situation for success. But again, I defer to the guys who get paid to manage this kind of stuff.
For sure. And I'm sure they have a plan again, because he's so highly rated in the goaltending group that they have coming along. I think they're just trying to do it right. So that's I think that's great. I mentioned earlier that when I looked at the lineup, pretty well stacked with the key players of the Wolves, and one of the guys that just came back from a cup of coffee with the Hurricanes, of course, was Scott Morrow. Morrow has had an outstanding season, as you've seen him play so much this year and play so well. He leads the AHL in assists and points by a rookie defenseman. He's got 19 assists, 29 points. He's actually got more than that now. He's tied for 4th amongst all defensemen. So this is an impressive story. He's the first AHL defenseman since the 2013-14 season to get 2 hat tricks in a season. I mean, that's insane. And he's got 3 game-winning goals to go along with it. Morrow, I thought he accounted for himself quite nicely with the Hurricanes. You recall that Rod Brindamore said he's just playing so darn well down there. We had to bring him up. And they had the situation where they were battling flu and players were out, so it was an opportunity for them to bring someone up from Chicago. And, Morrow to me is a player that is really starting to make a case to be on the Canes roster next season. What are you seeing with Scott since he returned?
Yeah, I've said before, what he can do with the puck is quite magical. And I think most people have seen his goal against Rockford, and if you haven't, then I would suggest going and searching that highlight up, because
I did see the goal.
Yeah, he just dog walks 3 ice hogs and on his way to burying a big goal there for the Wolves. And I had a chat with Spiros Anastas about it, the assistant coach and the leader of the defensive unit. And he made sure to point out that, the points are going to be like the big talking points. They're going to be what really kind of draws everyone's attention, and really kind of what helped him make the All-Star team in his first year in the AHL. But what's allowed him to really catch the attention of the coaching staff up in Raleigh and allowed him to kind of get that cup of coffee with the Hurricanes is how well he's improved off the puck. And that's including getting to the puck first and not being afraid of that first contact. It's been his gap control. It's those little details that, that separate from, your offensive dynamos from like your true elite number one kind of talents, and which he's definitely evolved into in his short time here in Chicago. And so he's playing all situations and, great in all 3 zones on the special teams and everything. I mentioned he's been a monster as a quarterback in the power play, one of the guys that's been, helping contribute to that bottom 5 unit. But it's been, a treat to watch this kid take so many steps forward in such a small amount of time. And, I think we all were aware of his talent coming in, but now it's, when you refine that with, the talking points with the coach, and Coach Anastas loves hearing him in the video room and going over, even some of the tough conversations that they've had to have over, some games that maybe weren't so great. He's taken it all in stride, and he's learned from good games and bad games. So that's what you want from a pro. That's what you want from a guy who's gonna not stay here very much longer in Chicago, but I'm gonna enjoy it for all the games that he's here with the Wolves.
Well, certainly with the Canes, he's looked like a different player from last year. Much more confident, much more involved defensively, solid gaps, just really looks like he's learning fast. And the comments that Brind'Amour certainly, are significant in terms of his future, because if Rod's a guy that believes you're making good progress, then you're on his radar, which is critical. And, thinking about the Canes next year, it's kind of interesting because we've got 2 veteran defensemen who are going to be unrestricted free agents. Of course, that's Dmitry Orlov and Brent Burns, which opens up a couple of spots on the blue. We know that Alexander Nikishin is probably heading over to take one of those. And I think Scott Morrow has an excellent opportunity to grab that other one, because it is a right shot position. So he's definitely in the mix, and he's making his case very strongly at this stage for sure. So we'll keep an eye on Mr. Morrow, and as you say, we'll enjoy his good play with Chicago as long as he's with the Wolves. And that's another situation that I think is a good one, where the Canes can leave him there as he continues to grow his game and play in all situations and play big minutes. So it's great stuff for Morrow. Hey, talking about the defensive core, another guy that's I think continuing to grow and was on I think a 7-game point streak was Dominic Fensore, and he of course has been playing some big minutes alongside Scott Morrow. We've talked about Dominic before. How's he been playing lately?
Yeah, he was on that point streak for a while, and then the points kind of haven't really been coming over this losing streak, but they haven't been coming for everyone. So I can't really say it's any of Dom's fault or anything. But he's been giving exactly kind of what Chicago has been looking for. He's another dynamic force that's able to move that puck. And I've also been very impressed with how he's been playing in his own end, because I think there's a bit of a stigma behind, that smaller defenseman who can really wheel and deal. And it's like, okay, well, all you got to do is go right at him, right? And I think some opponents have tried getting in Dom's face, thinking that they can just kind of push him around. And he's kind of taken it to some of these guys where he's, he might be giving up some inches, giving up some pounds, but he's not backing down.
Good.
Doesn't back down in the corners, in front of the net, anywhere. And I love to see that. I love to see that, he's not, playing timid. He's not afraid of contact or anything like that. He's actually going to be coming at you. And so, when you got that kind of little bit of bowling ball that's got a low center of gravity, you can kind of catch these guys off guard. It's created a lot of fun hockey for him. And I think, I think the only thing that's he's got working against him is kind of the, you've mentioned some of the other names up in Carolina that probably ahead of him in the depth chart. It's just, it's a strong unit in the NHL. So he's, I think, he's got a shot. I think he's got a shot at the, at a legit career ahead of him if he keeps playing like this. And, he's become a favorite of mine, and I might be a little biased because he's got, that Fensore, that Italian-ness. But, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm aware of my own biases when they show up.
Good for you.
I've also come to really admire his game and really admire his attitude and his approach to how he handles it. Again, I think a lot of people kind of have written him off a little bit with his size and all that. I think he can prove a lot of people wrong. And if he continues his strong play, he's going to get, more of that spotlight.
Yeah, and he's certainly building confidence with the coaching staff. They play him in all situations. He's a guy that, he's a former captain at Boston College, a heck of a player. Hobey Baker finalist a couple of times. This guy was a great player. So it's not, we shouldn't really be surprised that he's starting to really, round his game out in the pros. He's battling size, but he's a guy that I think with his potential, and I'm like you, I'm a huge fan of Dom's. I think I've loved him in the prospect showcases. I really like what he's doing now, and I just feel like he's going to be a guy that's going to be biting for a spot in the not too distant future. So another exciting player that you get to watch in Chicago.
There's a couple.
Good on you. Well, one of the guys that also came back and filled up the lineup recently from the Hurricanes, of course, was Juha Jaska. And Jaska is a real favorite of mine and of a lot of people. I think he's just a great guy. And wanted to read what he said when he came back. I thought it was quite telling. And this is what Juha said. He said, "It was amazing, of course. It was nice to be there for so long, 1 month. I could really get used to the game and used to the rhythm of what is normal life in the NHL. It was a really good experience, and now I know what I need to get better at. Every day, you don't even unpack your stuff because every day you could get sent down. The next dream is to be an NHL player and know you're going to stay there. I know this is really good for me. The game is so hard up there, so I need to get way better. And this is the perfect spot to develop my game with this group and with these guys." He's really a special guy, I think, and I really liked what he did with the Hurricanes. He's definitely a guy that doesn't hurt you when he's on the ice, and he gives a full effort, and the people love him. What are you seeing with Juha?
Yeah, if that quote doesn't speak exactly to the kind of player he is and the mindset that he has, then, I don't really know what more to tell you. But, I can't believe it was a month. Wow. But yeah, he, Canes fans saw exactly what he was capable of when he went up there. And, he's been down for, I think, 3 games now at this point. And I don't think he has any points, but it's certainly not for lack of opportunity, lack of effort or anything like that. It's just the way that the puck's been bouncing these last couple of games. But if going back to that quote, I think he's got his mindset right where he's just going to come in and continue to play his game at the level that, he knows what is expected of him. He knows what he's got to bring every night. And as long as he just keeps doing that, I'm sure he's going to end up back in Carolina sooner rather than later. And I'm gonna hate to lose him because he became a favorite of mine very quickly at first, and I'm always happy to see the guys move up and succeed at the next level, but I can be a little selfish and kind of hope that they kind of hang on down here for a couple more games. But at any rate, that what you're getting every night from him, you're knowing just kind of how responsible he is in all three zones. He plays penalty kill, he plays power play, he does anything that's asked of him, and you can't really ask for much more than that. Than this guy he's just so versatile, and the fact that you can slot him in just about anywhere it's a trait that these coaches really love and admire, and it speaks volumes kind of how coaching staffs either in Chicago or Carolina praise what he brings to the lineup. So I hope he's in Chicago a little longer, but I don't think I think he's got Carolina written all over him a little later in the season here.
Well, he definitely, is going to be in the mix for sure because he's been a solid performer when he's been up there. He's not getting the offense, but certainly on that fourth line, he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's pushing in the offensive zone. He's laying on the body. He's doing all the right kind of things. And I'm like you. I'm a big fan of Juha. You know what? He came over without any fanfare. Nobody even really knew who he was. And you have to give the Canes scouting staff kudos for finding a player like this kind of hidden in Finland. And now he's coming over here and starting to make his mark. And for sure, he'll continue to shine with Chicago, and we'll just see what he can do with the Hurricanes as well this year. A couple of guys, you talk about the veterans in this mix. A couple of guys that have been, they've scored a little bit lately. Not a lot of goals for the Wolves, but they've been certainly chipping in. And I think a couple of really heart and soul guys, character guys that make a big difference when you have a team like this with a lot of young players. Of course, Captain Josiah Slavin and Skylar Brindamore are the two guys I'm talking about. Slavin was in the U.S. development program. This is kind of interesting. So he started in that program, was with Chicago Steel. That's a pretty, storied franchise. So a lot of folks play there that end up in the NHL. Went to Colorado College, of course. He had 18 goals with Rockford in a short season in 21, 22, and 49 games. So he's got some ability. There's no question. And he's had a number of different cups of coffee in the NHL during this period. Brindamore, of course, he started with Quinnipiac when they won the championship a couple of years ago, and his dad got to see him a lot. And I guess that might have contributed to him being signed by the Canes this year. So he's got a championship behind him as well. So these are a couple of quality guys, part of the mix. And I think, again, adding to this whole kind of season with the Wolves. What are you seeing with these two guys?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. Heart and soul is exactly what you're getting from both of them. I was kind of rooting for Ryan Suzuki to get that C that they ended up giving to Josiah Slavin. But again, that's why these guys make the hockey decisions in Chicago and not me, because it was absolutely the right call to do so. And I love what Slavin brings to this team. I love that watching him just give it his all for his boys, and he doesn't let anyone push the young kids around. He's always right there in someone's face. If you got something to say, he's going to be coming in and giving you a response pretty quick. And Skylar Brindamore has actually been quite a surprise, just with, what you're getting with, the forechecking and the face-offs and the defensive play. Like, okay, he's a carbon copy of his dad. We're all aware of that. But I looked up his numbers in Charlotte. He didn't have a whole lot of offensive flash, and I was okay. No. They weren't really looking for a 60-point guy or anything like that. but I'm pretty sure he's already well past those. He had 8 points in 54 games with Charlotte. He's already up to 14, 9 goals. Just a menace around the net, and that's what the Chicago loves, those kinds of players that can go in there and create a little bit of chaos. So it's more than just kind of a name signing. Like, obviously he's connected to the coach there in Carolina. But he's actually been able to bring tangible value to this lineup and isn't just kind of like, a nepotism baby who's just riding the coattails of his name. No, this guy is rolling his sleeves up and he's going to work every night, and he's providing this team with a huge lift. And I think, part of the reason of this penalty kill kind of picking up lately has been because of those two names right there and the effort that they're bringing every night.
Well, they're both big guys. They check in at 6'3" and 190. So it's interesting. They're both tall guys that can bring a little bit of size into the mix as well. And, again, at the prospect showcase, I thought that Brind'Amour looked very, very strong this year. And that was before he was able to get his contract deal with the Hurricanes, of course. But again, great lineage. And a couple of guys that are really going to be key as the Wolves run towards a playoff spot this year. So we'll keep an eye on Josiah and Skylar for sure. Now, you mentioned Spiros Anastas. Now, I know you did a big piece with him recently. Wanted to touch base with you on that as well, Andrew. What anything come out of that discussion that was particularly interesting for you?
Oh, are you kidding me? It was incredible. I normally have these chats with players. Because where I'm situated at, I don't kind of have the luxury of seeing them post game so much. So I have to have some conversation with them over the phone after practice, and usually the talks last 6 or 7 minutes. I was on the phone with Coach Anastas for almost a half hour. And we talked about everything from, his coaching experience with some kind of not quite such big hockey powers like South Korea and Serbia and China and Greece.
Estonia. Yes.
And Estonia, exactly.
And the University of Lethbridge.
Exactly. So, getting to dive into, the subdivisions of the IIHF, we got to talk about, obviously Scott Morrow was a big topic of conversation, just rebuilding that culture in Chicago and kind of tuning the off the ice noise that was coming in with both sides, and just focusing on how to get these guys playing well on the ice. We even talked about both of us coming from Mediterranean backgrounds and our favorite foods and family traditions.
That's the most important stuff.
Exactly. It was such a great human conversation. And my biggest takeaway from the whole thing is that, you can just feel the contagious passion from this guy and how much he cares about his players as humans first and then as hockey players afterwards. It's very reminiscent of Ryan Warsofsky's approach in Chicago when I first joined on the beat. And if anyone isn't familiar with Warzy, 2 Calder Cups to his name. He's beginning a great career in the NHL, his first season and as the bench boss in San Jose. And, if Coach Anastas and Coach Abbott are, kind of building that same kind of culture, I think they have just the same kind of future ahead of them as well. So it was an awesome conversation. Just an incredible guy, incredible dude. And, it makes me even more excited to see, what this blue line is capable of going forward, knowing that they have, they're in good hands for sure.
Well, and you mentioned the blue line, and there's 3 guys that we're following extremely closely, of course, and that's Scott Morrow, Dominic Fensore, and Charles Alexis Legault. I think all three of those guys have all the potential in the world to make the NHL at some point. So this is exciting that they've got a guy like Spiros that's really kind of running with it, and obviously head coach Cam Abbott also involved, and he seems like he's doing a great job as well. So that's great. I'm glad you had a chance to talk with him, and thanks for that update as well, Andrew. Okay, any thoughts before we wrap up?
I just want to give a shout out to a piece of the team who, again, is a little more unheralded, and a lot of fans in Carolina probably don't know about this guy, but Yannick Turcotte was a tryout coming from the East Coast Hockey League, and I think really kind of made a name for himself in that Manitoba game at the beginning of the season, where he was given 2 separate game misconducts by the end of it, but just an absolute force with his fists and with his physicality. Kind of, I mean, we always talk about, fighting in this game and whether it has a place or not. I don't know if you tune into that Four Nations game between the U.S.
Yes.
Anything to
3
say
fights in the first 9 seconds.
Exactly. And at this level, this guy he parlayed a tryout into a contract with the Wolves for the rest of the season. And I mean, you can just tell how much the coaching staff, the fans love him. I mean, between Kyle Marino in seasons past and Turcotte this year, the fans in Chicago always go crazy for their big bodyguards on the ice. I love telling these stories of these guys that, they break through, they catch their break, they, it becomes something even better for them that ends up kind of changing their career and changing their lives. I just wanted to give a shout out to him, and for any fans that think, the enforcer role is dead or gone, you don't have to look any further in Chicago to find it that it's very much alive in the game today.
Well, yeah, interesting story. And he had been in the ECHL for 8 years, and I think was actually thinking that he was going to hang him up because he felt like maybe this was going to be too late for him. And I know what he's been saying basically is, look, I'm going to do whatever I can to help make a difference with this hockey club, and whatever talents I have, I'm going to bring them to the table. So I think it's a great story, and you're absolutely right, Andrew. These guys, boy, it's wonderful when they do get a chance to move up and contribute in a way that they can. So this is a great story, and we'll follow Turcotte as the season goes on for sure. Anything else on your mind?
Some wins, hopefully. Between Grand Rapids and Chicago, it's starting to get a little blue over in the beat.
Yeah, I get it. Well, listen, man, as always, it's great to talk Chicago Wolves hockey with you and get the latest news. And of course, we'll be back next month, same time at the middle of the month to talk the Wolves. Where can folks find you, Andrew? Where are you located?
Yeah, so I have my written works for the Chicago Wolves and the Grand Rapids Griffins at the Calder Times, where we cover all things AHL, all your favorite prospects around the league, and it's great. I've had an absolute blast writing for them. You can also find me on the Twitter sphere or X or whatever you want to call it. At Andrew_Rinaldi_. I continue to give updates on the teams. I live tweet during the games. I love interacting with the fans. If you have any questions or any chirps or anything like that, I'm welcome to anything that's within reason. So, yeah, I do this for the fans. I do this for everyone out there, and it's always good to interact with the people who are interested in my work. So you can always find me there.
Well, for sure, and always great to see what you're doing. And I follow quite often during the games and your updates and so on as well, Andrew. So that's great stuff. For those of you who have been listening or watching, thanks for joining us. If you have any questions or comments for Andrew or myself, please leave those down below and we'll try to respond just as quickly as we can. If you like this episode, please press the like button. And if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Chicago Wolves Report or Storm Tracker in general, just please press the subscribe button and the bell, and we'll alert you as soon as those are available. As always, Andrew and I appreciate, as I say, you joining us here, and we'll look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need Storm Tracker.